Hi there, this is Stephanie, and this is Screenr 1 of a multi-part series dealing with course evaluations for your Articulate e-learning courses. What I've done here and what you see here is a typical evaluation. This is kind of boring. Usually what I see is a tendency to put all the questions on one slide, and then there's a typical rating scale like this. Now this is predictable and something that we've all seen from high school. We do have an opportunity in the corporate environment and with adult learning to be able to punch this up a little bit. We should be motivated to do this because we really do want to get the opinions of our learners immediately upon completion of the courses. We want to know both the good and the bad, and it's going to help us to refine our product and help the SMEs and help the person who's footing the bill as well. So to do this, the first step I do is I break out the questions onto individual slides. This way I have the learner's full attention. This is the question that I want to ask you, and here's the responses, and there really isn't any other distraction. I've also made it a little bit more appealing. Instead of just a white background and a typical look, I've put in a nice gradient background. I've put in some graphic detail here as well. I drew in a rounded rectangle, I filled it with white, I put a 3D bevel on it, and a slight reflection. And I've created an effect that you typically wouldn't see in an evaluation question. So I usually do this in PowerPoint, all the proof of concept, both graphical and animation. Once I'm happy with it, then I'll recreate and build that over in Quizmaker. So in Quizmaker, you can see that I've done exactly that. Here are all the questions. Now we're not going to go through all the examples in this one screener. I'm going to have a few other screeners that will go through the other ones, but we will go through the first one here. So instead of selecting a graded question in Quizmaker, you're going to select survey question. And instead of selecting Likert scale, which produces the traditional format, in my examples I'm using pick one for a Likert scale question, a single Likert scale question, or essay for a fill-in-the-blank question, something like what do you like best or user comments. So let's take a look at the first one, the blue gradient background. So we'll double click on that. We go into form view. I've typed in the question up top here, and here's typically down here where the responses for the Likert scale would be. So that would be strongly disagree, disagree, not sure, etc. But in this example, I'm not actually typing the labels in. I'm just putting a space for each of the 5 labels, A through E. And the reason why I'm doing that is because that's going to separate out the radio buttons that the user clicks from the actual labels that describe what those buttons do. If I were to type the label right in here, it would appear to the right of the radio button, and that's not the effect I want to create. So I want the label to be separate from the radio button itself. But I do have to account for 5 radio buttons, so I press the space bar right down to E. Now I switch over to the slide view, and here's the completed slide. Now when I came to the slide, none of this stuff was here. There was a white background. There were 5 radio buttons, but those buttons were actually vertically aligned over here, and the question text was here, but it wasn't formatted this way. So the first thing I did was I changed the background to be just from a plain white over to a gradient fill with 4 stops with varying shades of blue to create this effect. I formatted the question text to be white and a little bit larger. I brought in the PowerPoint object I had previously exported just by using the Insert Picture menu from Quizmaker, and then I duplicated that 4 times. And then I also inserted the text for each one of the labels, and I did that just using Insert Text Box. I typed in the label text, and then I copied that 4 times and edited, and then I just dragged it around to where I wanted it to appear on the screen. I then grabbed each one of the labels. So one of these labels, the labels may have been up here to begin with. I just grabbed the label and I positioned it to where I wanted it to be on the screen. Once I had done that, then I selected all of the objects down below here. I went up to the animations menu and I chose fly in, a speed of medium, and from the left. Now let's click on preview so you can see what that looks like. Not only did we create a really nice graphic effect for this individual question, but we also added a nice subtle animation to bring it to life, something that the user wouldn't necessarily expect, and it should encourage them to continue with the evaluation. So the next screener will show you another example of graphics and animations for evaluation questions. Thanks.